How's it, data fam? Welcome to the third episode of our PL-300 exam prep series, where we are essentially going through the Microsoft exam prep content in detail to help you prepare for the exam. And if you're new, welcome and please like and subscribe to this channel as we're going to be covering the full course on Power BI completely for free. Now, this is a very important module that we're officially studying today, which is prepared data analysis for Power BI. So this is more about preparing your data for analysis in Power BI. This accounts for 25 to 30% of the actual exam itself, which is quite a lot. This is almost half of what's required for you to actually pass the exam. So you definitely want to pay attention to this. And let me know in the comment section if you've got any other questions that you need clarity on, particularly for this section. Now, this is a very long sort of module. So there's three components to this sub modules, which is get data in Power BI, clean, transform, and load data in Power BI, choose a Power BI model framework. So those are the core things that we'll be covering here. But for the purpose of the upcoming two episodes, which is this is gonna be the first part, and the second episode is gonna be covering the last part of the get data in Power BI. You're gonna start with get data in Power BI and focus on the core concepts that you need to understand and for you to be ready for the exam, particularly for this area. Now, as you can see, there's quite a lot that needs to be covered, but on part one, we're gonna look at how to get data from files, how to get data from relational databases, NoSQL online services, and data sources. These are the core sort of data sources that Power BI essentially supports. Now, in terms of what exactly or the objective of this or what the exam is looking for, remember, this is more on how you can get data into Power BI. You haven't transformed data, you haven't done any of those fancy things. It's about understanding what data sources Power BI supports and how you can change the data source locations. Maybe your data source is moved to a different folder. How do you change that? If you want to edit certain permission to say certain people shouldn't have access to this data sources, this is where you'd essentially do that. So this module is focused on exactly that and how you would be loading data from various sources. So what the exam is going to test you on is your ability to identify and connect to data sources or shared semantic model, change data source settings, including credentials and privacy levels, which you're going to be covering in the practical session of our video. Choose between direct query and import. So this is about whether you should directly query a data set or you should import the entire data set. The last one is create and modify parameters. Now, this is really the objective here. So I'm going to switch to our actual demo and show you the different data sources that Power BI supports and how you can load data on the different sort of data sources that you should be aware of. Now that we've switched onto Power BI, you can see that I've been working on some Power BI dashboarding and all of that for the purpose of this demo. So what's very important is you can see Power BI is really broad and there's a lot of options for you to work on. But what's important for this session, we want to get data into Power BI that we can use to visualize. So make sure that you're under home, and under home you can see you get the option to get data. So you're going to click on the drop down. So this allows you to choose data from an Excel or Power BI semantic model, data flows, data vets, and all of these different formats. But we're going to look at them one by one, but not really all of them, but some of the core ones that you essentially need to know. If the data source that you're looking for is not here, you just need to click more. So in the exam, they might even test you on the certain things. So it's really about understanding how you navigate around Power BI to be able to see all the different data formats. As you can see under files, these will be the different types of files that you can essentially, you can even load PDFs, XML, JSON folders in SharePoint folder and all of that. Databases, there's various databases that you can essentially load onto. Fabrics, you've got Power Platform. So I think what's something very important to pay attention to in the exam, they might ask you, they might give you maybe a file and say what data source would this fall under? Is it a file, database, or is it a Fabrics? So already if you look at files, you can already see this is there's Excel, there's XML, there's TXT, and all of that. So really, it's important for you to understand the different types of data sources that you're working with, as they can try to see if you understand where would you find the particular data source that you would be looking for. So just try to familiarize yourself with the different data sources. Now, for the purpose of this video, I'm going to be using an Excel type of file format. And once you click on the file format that you want to load, you then say connect data. So once you say connect data, you'll be taken to the different various data sources or where your data source is essentially sitting. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to go to my downloads and I'm going to load book. So this is an example of a data source that I'll be loading, and I'm going to load this data source. So it's now getting a connection of the data source that I'm essentially trying to load into Power BI, and I'm gonna click on it. The moment you click on it, they give you a preview of the data. So this is where you either transform your data or load your data. You only load your data if you know that it's clean. I'm just gonna load it because for the purpose of this, we're not gonna be doing any transformation. So I'm gonna load this data source. Okay. So Power BI is now loading the data source, and then once the data source has been loaded, it's been successfully loaded, then you can see there is our sheet 2 that I've just recently loaded. So that's essentially how you'd load an Excel format. But there's also other formats, right? Let's say you want to load data from SQL Server. Now, each format has a different way for you to load the data. If you're loading data from SQL Server, you want to specify the server that you're connecting to. You can even specify the database that you're connecting to. You can either do an import, so this is directly importing all the data, or you can do a direct query where you can query certain data elements that you're looking for and not have to actually import the full data. Now, you've also got the option to write SQL statements to say maybe select, let's say A and C. So those would be columns. So those will be certain columns. And you can even say from table C. So this is where you essentially specify what exactly you're looking for. You can even add where statement essentially. So you've got that option to really write an SQL script to specify the different what exactly you're looking for and to filter out certain data elements that you don't need. Because remember, you can't you generally want to reduce the load onto Power BI. So this is where you essentially do that. So that's how you load data from an SQL type of data source. Let's say you wanted to load from a web type of thing. So this is where you normally you add your URL link. So you've got the option to just paste the URL link, and you get you can even use advanced features where you can specify certain things. So each and every data source really has a different way of you actually loading the data. It's just about you playing around and understanding how the data is being loaded. So you will be tested, especially on the SQL one, to say how would you load data? Would you do a direct import query, or would you just decide to do connect with the actual database itself? And this is based on what's much more feasible, adds less pressure onto Power BI, or the magnitude of the data set, or how frequent you essentially want to do your refreshes, right? Now that we have an understanding of that, now the last part of it, we need to learn how to sort of change your data source settings. So if maybe your data source is moved to a different location, and maybe you wanted to change the location without having to redo your whole Power BI dashboard and all of that, all you need to do is this. You click on the transform drop down just under format here, and then you're going to say transform source settings. So this is where you are taken to a place where you can change your data source settings. Now, very important for the exam, right? Change source allows you to change the source or location of your data source. Export, this allows you to export the location detail, or to share your data set to particular team members within your team. Edit permission. This is where you maybe want to make your data set source private or public to an organization, or you want everyone in the organization to essentially access. So this is where you would essentially do that. But if you wanted to clear permissions, you don't know who's got access to what, and you just worry that okay, maybe something's been compromised. You just clear all the permissions on here. So I'm not gonna clear any permission, right? So yeah, this is where you essentially do. So in the exam, they might ask you if you wanted to clear permissions, where do you do it? This is where you do it. Wanted to edit permission to share your data sort of information. This is where you do it. Now we want to change the location. I'm going to show you how to change the location of your data source. I'm going to select the sales data, right? So we've got sales data there. I'm selecting it, and I'm going to say change source location. So currently sitting under documents. As you can see, it's sitting under documents. I want to connect it to the recent one that they recently downloaded onto the downloads area. So I'm going, this is sales data sets, and I'm going to say open. As you can see that the location is essentially changed, and I'm going to say okay. and you can see it's been now updated. It's now sitting under the downloads, and I'm going to close. The moment you close, Power BI is going to ask you to apply the changes. I'm going to apply the changes. So now my new data set location is now being loaded onto Power BI, and all the new data that would have been on that file will now be updated onto this Power BI dashboard. And essentially, that is how you import data and change the location, edit certain permissions on Power BI. So on the next part, we're going to be covering things like the import query and parameters. So if you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe for more.